from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hey, welcome in. Good Monday, everyone. Dom Giordano, Giordano. Spelling lesson from Talk Radio 1210, noon until 3 in Philadelphia. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210. The overriding issue tonight, but I got another one that's bubbling up here in a second, is all the byplay today, just when you thought it went away. If you could remember last week listening to the show, Monday, we started in a week ago, that the story, and we did it before others were really drilling down on it, of the so-called seditious six, these six former military people, Democrats, illegal orders, not being specific, going after Trump. Boy, developments today. But one thing that sort of is in their crosshairs, it's not going to happen. So tonight, to add to this, House Republican Salazar from Florida, who just says wild stuff, even though I don't care that she's a Republican, started talking on the floor about we're going to go into Venezuela because it'll be a field day for oil companies. No, Trump is not going to invade Venezuela. He's not going to do boots on the ground. This is the greatest legacy of President Trump toward Republicans. I've said this many times in the show. He's not going to put Americans in harm's way. He might bomb, he might hit the drug boats, but no, Representative Salazar, we're not going into Venezuela. I mention that because this is the type of thing that fuels the other side. And what happened today, I think, is going to walk. Here's the theme of this. And we have someone with vast military service coming up. We're going to talk with, and I believe he's been on America at Night before. We're going to talk with Air Force veteran General Blaine Holt, who was a deputy and NATO commander, tech entrepreneur. You see him on Newsmax a lot, about Mark Kelly. And what's happened here is, you have finally, through Pete Hegseth, an investigation was announced today under the U.S. Military Justice Code, and I think rightfully so. Why just Kelly? Well, the reason is the other five, two of them are CIA. We'll get to that later on. People now talking about the CIA involvement in this. And the others are not in the military anymore. In other words, the hook is that Mark Kelly can be, his status, he can be called for active duty because he still has that connection, his commission. And if he is, they can court-martial. Now, court-martial doesn't mean guilty. It just means they hold a court-martial trial. And I think that's the end. Rather than sedition and hanging and all that stuff, what has to happen to these six is they have to be punished proportionally. And what that would mean is he could lose his commission as an officer, his pension, and his public stature as a military figure. I think that should happen to all of them for what they've done here. So what happens then is Senator Gallego, who's a former Marine in Arizona, jumps into the ring, and he says Pete Hegseth is a coward. He's not a man to be doing this. He does the whole man thing, this guy who's running for president, apparently. Then Eugene Vindman, remember him? Ukraine, the call, the whole thing. He jumps into the ring, offering his services. He is a former JAG officer to Mark Kelly, who is under duress. Mark Kelly then launches a fundraising operation coming off the fact that the military has said what he's done here is something that could disrupt the military in layman's terms. As a result of this, we've instituted an investigation. I predict the investigation is going to lead to a military trial, and I think it should. And I told you what would be proportional. And despite his vast military experience and service to the country, I think he was a dupe in this. I think it's Lisa Slotkin. All the signs point toward her, the woman from Michigan, as the architect of this. By the way, Gallego said something else. He said on CNN that he could not participate in this because he didn't have the time, and by the time he saw the script, get it? The script. So what this is this is just off the cuff. Somebody organized all this. Even though all they're saying is the same thing, don't give up the ship. You understand what I'm saying? This is more complicated. Somebody's behind this. I think it's Slotkin. And he was asked to do it. He claims, and we'll see, he just didn't have the time. Come on, it's a minute or two. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he saw his play from the outside that it would enhance him. So the moving parts here tonight are unbelievable on this. And we'd love to have you get in at 833-482-5337. Also, throughout the show, at any point, because I think Sean Duffy's on to something here, the head of Transportation Department, calling for more civility while flying. What have you seen people do? What's the most annoying thing while flying? Now, I have not seen this, but he said, we don't want you showing up to the airport in your pajamas and slippers. If you've seen that, I'd love to hear it. It used to be flying was seen as such a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing. Remember the first time you flew? I was trying to think about that today. Versus the grind it out it is now. And who's responsible for that? Some of it is the airlines. They're trying to say it's just people. People are rude. They're not polite. No, some of it's the airlines. They do whatever they want. They have to be reined in constantly. I just took 60 listeners to Sicily, and it was a great trip. But coming back, going through Frankfurt, and going through Frankfurt, my wife and I met them there, so I wouldn't do that again. I would never go through Frankfurt again. Just an awful airport. Awful in every sense of the word. So what is it when you fly? He did say something I've seen. People take their shoes off and put their feet up on the side of your chair. And again, there's not enough space on planes. I'm about 6'1". It's hard for me to sit there 7 hours and not try to move my legs around somewhat. You cramp up. So, Duffy's right about this, calling for civility, calling for this over the Thanksgiving holiday at Newark Airport today. We got a lot of sound to play tonight, too, here's a little bit. Here's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy urging Americans, this is cut one, to dress better.
But I think we have to think about how do we do a better job? How do we, maintain maybe some of that frustration we have as we travel this Thanksgiving season? Maybe we should say please and thank you to our pilots and to our flight attendants. I think, again, I call this just maybe dressing with some respect. Whether it's a pair of jeans and a decent shirt, I would encourage people to maybe dress a little better, which encourages us to maybe behave a little better. Let's try not to wear slippers and pajamas as we come to the airport. I think that's positive.
I have not seen that. I have not. Have you? I do agree with, though, somewhat. Somebody can be a jerk and dressed up in a full suit and a whole. We know all that. But by and large, I think the little bit better you dress, the better it is. One other quick thing, then we're going to go to the general. Tonight, I have visited the museum where Lee Harvey Oswald stalked Kennedy and shot and killed him in Dallas. And tonight, ABC put in Who Killed JFK, a series, documentary. It was the anniversary the other day. And a friend of my show, Gerald Posner, was not included. He just tweeted out he wasn't included, he believes, because of Oliver Stone. I'm going to develop this. Posner is the one that proved, without a doubt, in my mind, unless you just want to, get into conspiracies constantly, that Lee Harvey Oswald did do it. Oh, not Oliver Stone. No. There's a lot more money in conspiracy than what Posner did. He couldn't debate Posner in a million years. He's a maniac. And I think they kept Posner off the show tonight because of Oliver Stone. All righty, phone lines. 833-482-5337. Let's talk with someone who's been in command. You see him on Newsmax, etc. We'll talk with General Blaine Holt coming up here on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who has presided over a series of deadly military strikes in the Caribbean of highly questionable legality, announced that the Pentagon will initiate an investigation into Senator Mark Kelly, one of 6 Democrats who participated in a video simply reminding active duty service members of their duty to refuse illegal orders. In a statement posted on social media, the Pentagon cited the Uniform Code of Military Justice and federal law prohibiting actions, quote, intended to interfere with the loyalty, morale, or good order and discipline of the armed forces, insisting, quote, orders are presumed to be lawful. Over the weekend, Donald Trump once again berated the 6 lawmakers. He called them, quote, traitors, saying, quote, they should be in jail right now. Quote, it was sedition at the highest level. Senator Mark Kelly, a former Navy fighter pilot and astronaut, responded this afternoon. Quote, Secretary Hegseth's tweet is the first I heard of this. I also saw the president's post saying I should be arrested, hanged, and put to death. If this is meant to intimidate me and other members of Congress from doing our jobs and holding this administration accountable, it won't work. I've given too much to this country to be silenced by bullies who care more about their own power than protecting the Constitution.
That's from MSNBC. Dom Giordano pinch hitting. Let's bring in someone who's actually been in this situation. Brigadier General retired U.S. Air Force veteran Blaine Holt. You see him on Newsmax quite a bit as a contributor. General, thank you for your service, and thank you for coming on tonight. I would throw it open to you just to go where you would with this. What jumps out at you, any aspect of this, given your background?
Well, thanks so much for having me. And you know, the MSNBC anchor is trying her hardest to try to make it look like there's some sort of objectivity going on, but there's not at all. What we have here is a clear-cut case of sedition. The president has done nothing but issued legal orders. In fact, he's had to go out of his way to issue legal orders because he's engaged in lawfare at all times. They put Article 2 judges in front of him to obstruct every bit of nonsense they possibly can to impede his agenda. Listen, I have been in situations in combat where I had very distasteful presidents issuing orders all over the place that were going nowhere fast, but they were lawful orders, and I certainly followed them. But where we get into trouble here is you have former senior leaders in the intelligence community and in the military, like Mark Kelly, who are making these statements, inciting some sort of insurrection. And it's that poor, unwitting sergeant, it's that poor, unwitting captain who thinks that this is legitimate. And then they're going to act out, and they're going to do something really stupid, and their careers will be canceled like that night. This is awful. It's only going to escalate from here. And if Pam Bondi doesn't do something, we're going to be in a very much worse situation.
Now, with Kelly, though, we are doing something with the investigation, General, and then leading possibly to a court-martial. Would you really be trying? I've had military people on who are saying the remedy here is the court-martial potentially, then he loses his commission, he loses his pension, things of that nature. Do you really see it that it's risen to the level? Do you have to see more where you would be looking at the crime of sedition or treason, I guess?
Well, we're well beyond that level. The problem is he's a Navy captain. That means he's an 06. He's not a flag officer. So there's going to be a lot of legal back and forth as to whether. So a flag officer like myself, we never lose that title. We're always subject to the UCMJ at all times until death do we part. But in his case, it may not be that way. So there'll be some legal wrangling. However, in all cases, all 6 of them, this is sedition, this is treason. They are in an elected office encouraging dissent at an insurrection level inside the ranks of the United States military, and it's exactly that serious. We have people in harm's way. We have people that could be in harm's way with Venezuela. The MSNBC Tokyo Rose anchor likes to say highly questionable. Really, right. Highly questionable. Well, let's go through all of Obama's military actions and ask how many times he stopped off at Congress to ask for permission. The president is protecting us from 70,000 deaths per year in fentanyl, and he's tugging at the Jenga block that connects itself to every illicit activity on the planet, and that fits his Article 2, Section 2 responsibilities under the Constitution in Article 4, Section 4.
I'm friends with Colonel Allen West. We had him on, among others. And the thing to emphasize here to get us out of this, he said, and I agree, I'll see if you do, is this is very, very rare, these illegal orders, and that most people have not come across one. And if you make it that we're going to be parsing things, heaven forbid, particularly in combat, that's exactly the danger zone here. These are rare. What's your experience on that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And honestly, if you're a senior leader and you disagree with the orders, even if they're
right.
lawful orders, well, then you have a responsibility to resign your commission and say, I stop here. In my case, I had a second, not a front row, but a second row seat to Benghazi as a flag officer. I saw what happened in our chain of command, and it's not upon me to adjudicate these things legally, but I understood that night mentally that my military career would be ending soon because of what I saw. I was no longer in alignment with my oath. Now, I got off the stage quietly, silently, no kerfuffle. It didn't try to make myself a political statement. And 70 flag officers alongside of me did the exact same things, and we never coordinated with each other. We just felt philosophically that the Constitution needed respect. In every single case, that is an option for a senior leader in the military. What these people are espousing is absolute derision and falling away from the commander-in-chief, which will lead to their own court-martial. This is absolute. We haven't seen this since the Buchanan administration before the Civil War.
Absolutely. General, please stand by. We'll get more with General Blaine Holt, Brigadier General, retired U.S. Air Force, talking about this in very explicit terms, I'll put it that way, versus some of the others I've had on. How do you see it? 833-482-5337. So with Mark Kelly, what we're going to see, I would predict, and hearing the General even more than predict now, that we are going to see a court-martial proceeding ultimately. The others, Pam Bondi would have to intervene. Are we going to go down that path, as the General maintains, sedition? I'm not sure, that that's going to happen. But with Mark Kelly, and I believe Mark Kelly to be not the ringleader of this. I think it's Slotkin, the CIA operative. It's obvious to me in the interviews. And what do we make of Gallego saying the script didn't arrive in time for me? What script? You just say, don't give up the ship. You just say, I served, he's a Marine. They had no Marines in this. So this seems to be more planned, more calculated, more to hit at a certain period of time. Not sure why this period of time that they thought this would be effective. But it's Slotkin, the CIA person, I think more than Mark Kelly, who really had an esteemed career and now I think has thrown it away, at least in my view, no matter what he did in the military. All right, you get in. Dom Giordano, General Hoyt, and your calls coming up. This is America at Night on Westwood One.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
It's Dom Giordano, an apologetic Dom Giordano. I don't know, I have to get different glasses here. It's retired Brigadier General from the Air Force, Blaine Holt. What's the heck's with the Hoyt? General, I apologize. I submit myself for discipline. I really apologize. I've seen you on Newsmax. I don't know why. I blame the producers. No, it was me. So, General, we were talking about what's happened today with Mark Kelly and others jumping into the ring. Is there anything else, the CIA part of this and the connections? I'm looking at Slotkin, who was a major CIA player and connected to some of the figures from the Obama era, possibly. Does it seem like a Mark Kelly would be the one leading this, engaging in this. I mean, I thought a lot better of him. I see more coming her way is what started this, got this thing rolling.
Well, first off, no matter what you say and no matter what you call me, I can assure you I've been called far worse. So that's okay. But what I will tell you is none of the six, I believe, are responsible for the inception of this terrible idea. They had signed up for it, that's for certain. But I think there's something much higher up on the food chain, whether it's a very high-level donor to the Democratic Party, whether it's some globalist in the shadows. They understand full well that President Trump is on the march, and he is going after cartels, which is the string to every single illicit thing in this planet, including the 70,000 deaths connected with the drug trade. And so what we have to look at and what's important is that not only do we investigate these six, we investigate where this came from. In the case of Slotkin, it's a very important issue you raise. She is actually from the intelligence community. And quite honestly, in the CIA, she has lived in a world where there's very little possibility that they follow the law. And we know that from many, many instances. This is where the deep state comes from in the intelligence community. And so she should get special examination. And I would expect, and I would implore Director Ratcliffe to take much, much more of an interest in this, bust through any classifications he needs to, and put sunlight on this, because the American people are losing confidence really rapidly that their government has a handle on what we would call ethical behavior.
That's exactly where I would go to. I mean, in the interview after interview, and given her background, again, Mark Kelly is a grown-up, a guy, we revere in the military. He ought to know better. But I just don't see him, based upon even politically how he is coming up with this. I go more to your point, CIA. General, the thing that I wish President Trump were on more than Venezuela, but you might know better. I've been in Mexico. I interviewed the mayor of Juarez inside his bunker there. The cartels in Mexico, much more of a problem and much more doable. Do you think Trump is restrained from that because we want a better relationship with Mexico, a country that really is unable to control the cartels?
I think, quite honestly, he could throw life preserver after life preserver at President Claudia Sheinbaum, and she's not going to grab onto one of them because she is so ate up with the cartels. This is what I believe is, as President Trump creates pressure on the cartels, and honestly, if you park the Gerald Ford off the coast of Venezuela, what happens? All of the cartel bosses and Maduro and Sheinbaum and Petro, they scream bloody murder into their phones. We collect the intelligence, then we go after others. The field general in all of this is not General Kane. It's actually Scott Bessent, who's going to start zeroing out bank accounts. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to create pressure on Main Street, because the cartels, Hezbollah, all of the terror cells that are been let into this country over the last 4 years, they're on every single main street in the United States. And so as Americans, we need to understand that this war doesn't stay foreign, that we have to have our heads on a swivel here, and we have to look for corrupted politicians here, and that this thing could take on a very, very muddy, terrible facet to it here in the United States. And we should all be cautious about that.
Without a doubt. And I like your point, too. You probably know this by doing talk radio, Newsmax. The American people just want finally that we get to the bottom of stuff as best we can. It becomes increasingly hard, to your point about Slotkin and following through who else is behind this. At one point in the beginning of this, I thought, all right, they all got together. They hate Trump and Slotkin and the others. Let's use this as a message. The cover will be, all we're doing is reminding people of this. Coming off the No King stuff, they were smelling themselves after that. They thought they had play. But to your point and what you said tonight, and given your background, I agree. This needs a look-see to see how far this goes, how much money involved, and who else is behind this.
Yeah, no, exactly. Tell me who the common denominators and donors are amongst these six. Mm-hmm. And then you'll have now a short list of who we should start investigating to go even up further, even to foreign sources. Because, look, the United States is in play right now. And what President Trump is doing is trying to restore this republic, and he's trying to restore the rule of law. And he's getting fought by every single Article 2 judge that puts a black robe on right now. And so you could call it a cold civil war. But what these 6 have done is they're starting to stoke the embers, just like that new attorney general in Virginia who wants violence against Trump supporters. This is all the stuff we saw in 1859. And we would be very foolish if we didn't take it that seriously.
Absolutely. General, thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving. Where do listeners find you? Do you have a website? Where, Twitter? Where do they find you?
Come find me at my podcast at dangerousintellectuals.com, or come to Newsmax on the Insiders page at The Irascible Disruptor, and I write there weekly. And catch me on Newsmax anytime, and thank you for having me.
Well, one thing, too, the podcast, to give us that title again.
dangerousintellectuals.com. On X, you can find me at Danger Thinking.
All righty. Well, General, we have you on our Rolodex there. Have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
All right. There's General Blaine Holt here on America at Night. He wants to go the route with these people of sedition. And I thought people I had on today were talking about with the court-martial, what could happen with Mark Kelly is that he loses his commission, loses his pension, things of that nature. Might be hard. I think it's going to be hard to get sedition out of this, just the general reality of it. But he's the only one in which we have the nexus to do anything currently, unless Pam Bondi jumps in now. This investigation, I think, will lead to a court-martial trial. Doesn't mean he'll be found guilty. But it does mean there will be some consequence. And again, with 2 CIA operatives, one is the junior, it's Slotkin. Gallego saying, well, I didn't get the script early enough. What are we talking about here? They each had a couple of words, but there was a script floating around. Who did it? Who put it out there first? Where did it come from? Who wrote the script? Was it Slotkin? Did they have a producer? Did they have somebody to come in? Who are those people that put all this together? So from this 1 minute, we've started to spiral more into exactly how tentacled this whole thing is. All right, I'm coming to your calls, 833-482-5337. And throughout the show, as we head toward off to Grandmom's house over Thanksgiving, you heard Sean Duffy saying that, be polite, airport, don't come in your pajamas. Give us some behavior reviews. It doesn't have to be just flying, but flying is one where you really see it. And again, I had to take 3 flights to come back from where we were with listeners in Calabria. And each flight, oh, God, the check, what you have to go through, the coming on, the delays, etc., is not an easiest thing in the world, trying to figure out where you are in an airport, particularly, as I said, Frankfurt. So it's not a pleasant experience to fly. Now, given the sheer number of people that want to fly, etc., I know it's harder for the airlines to do it in a way that's dignified and not just a cattle call. But Duffy talking to the passenger and saying, how about dressing better, acting better, not putting your feet up on stuff, that kind of thing. What have you observed? Particularly maybe you were in the business for a while, or even if you weren't, just the stuff that you've observed. Here's how you get in, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Hey, welcome in, everyone. Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia, sitting in on America at Night at 833-482-5337. That's how you get on board. I don't know about you. Have you seen this woman? I want to play just a little bit from this Afghan Ben, B-E-H-N. She's running in Tennessee in the special election. She's the Democrat nominee for Tennessee's 7th district, parts of Nashville, Franklin, and beyond for her congressional district. And she's savaged places like Nashville. She calls it Tennessee a godforsaken state. I'll play cut 2 here in a second. But the thing on this is each one of these seats is precious politically. It makes a big deal. This woman actually seems to be apparently just crazed against country music. If you want to represent Nashville, country music, I want to mention, is not my thing per se, but I think it's evolved. It's not just the same twang and my pickup truck and things like that. It's all kinds of variants of country music now. Here's what she said, though, what has been unearthed, and she wants to represent Nashville. Cut 2.
After last week, we had this great show. We had Anderson Clayton. She's a North Carolina Democratic Party chair, and she came out of that rural organizing tradition, which obviously is your big focus. And I want to ask you a little bit about her in a little bit. But first, before I get to that, I'm sure people would love to know a little bit about you, who you are, how you, what you do at ruralorganizing.org, and how you got into that line of work.
Yeah, I love it. So I have an unconventional background. I'm a social worker, but on the public policy side. And I was actually working in Europe when Trump was elected. And unlike a lot of my colleagues, decided to move back to East Tennessee, where I grew up.
After Trump was elected?
Yeah, after Trump was elected.
Oh my God.
Yes, right. Not quite the common route. And I remember taking my parents out to eat and telling them I want to get into Tennessee politics, and my mom started sobbing at the table, and she said, "You're never supposed to move back to godforsaken East Tennessee."
All right, there you go. The parents blame the mom for this, and this woman is incredible. I think The View will probably have her on if she wins, or maybe even otherwise, simply because it's typical in one regard of a Democrat here disrespecting one of the places that really has a local flavor color. Nashville is world famous. There's a whole bunch of stuff with this. It's almost hard to believe, like she's not a double agent sent in there to get the nomination and to lose. All right, let's go to Tony in Montreal on WVMT. Hey, Tony, go right ahead. Hello. Yes, Tony, go ahead. All right, did we lose Tony there, guys, in the wilds of Montreal? Yeah, we'll see if we catch up with them. 833-482-5337 gets you on board. So this story continues to roil. You heard the General Holt, say that this, to him, goes right up to sedition for the 5 that haven't been investigated here fully. And Pam Bondi would be engaged in that. I don't quite see that happening. I think they're starting with Kelly because there's a clear nexus. He still is active, can be activated, and then charged with a court-martial after this investigation. I think that's the way to go. And if you're in the military, how do you see this playing out? What's going to happen at some imminent point here? Somebody triggered by this, maybe they're a little bit mentally off themselves, maybe they just hate Trump, is going to say a legal order, and they're going to be in big trouble, as the general said, because they're not going to have the backing of these people, whoever that backer is. They're just out there on their own, and they're lower rank. And these illegal orders are very hard to even name because they don't happen. When they do happen, they develop into a big deal. Also, as I mentioned, Gerald Posner left off tonight. I'm watching this documentary. I'm glad we're still remembering Kennedy and what happened here, and seeing this play out without Gerald Posner there and Oliver Stone, the ultimate conspiracy guy. Look, the thing he did with New Orleans and the whole thing was entertaining, the Kennedy film, but was not based on the facts. All right, we'll take more calls coming up. 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210, at DomShow1210. I'd love to hear from you after tonight's show. We heard from General Holt, and he was adamant about going down Broadway with this, not just with Kelly, but with the seditious six. Let's go to Tony in Montreal. WVMT. Hi, Tony. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hi. How are you? I'm sorry I didn't get you earlier. I couldn't hear you. But anyway, in terms of like seditious orders from the President of the United States, I find that ridiculous and politically harmful to general population, especially to people that are rank and file in the Army. It's like almost defying the chain of command. And people in Congress are being, actually dangerous in terms of advertising that type of defiance. And I'm confused because I don't see that benefiting the Democratic Party in any way other than hurting them, because there is no actual order. There's no My Lai order. There's no order, as the Nazis' defense was, well, Himmler ordered me to do this, and von Ribbentrop said, well, I took an order and I executed an order. Said,
well, Tony, let me cut to the chase. What they're thinking, although it's distorted, is they're coming off the No Kings thing. Had all these people turn out. There's all kind of resistance. They're resisting deep state, slow walking what Trump wants inside the government. So now, and I think it was Slotkin and her people, they decided we're really going to go down Broadway here to show this off. We are going to do the very same thing in the military, forgetting exactly what you're saying. This is an area where everybody knows you don't tread.
It's like you have a country that is a leading country in the world. Like in all of democracies, if the American complete organized armed forces is in any way in disarray, what happens to the rest of us?
That's a good point. That's a great point.
That's a chilling kind of a scenario, because at your throats there's people in the East, the Chinese Red Communists, that are building navies going into Philippines, taking over islands. Then you have the Russians with their type of duplicity, at the same time negotiating with Trump, but at the same time defying you and going in. You have the Islamophobics.
Tony, you bring a great perspective to it coming from Canada. Thank you. That's exactly right. Look, this whole thing is held together by the military order, by the chain of commands, and by civilian control of the military. You start disrupting that, you're going to have people go off. There's so many in the military. When that happens, they're going to get in big trouble, but the American people are less safe. What's the line? You made a nation less safe today, from A Few Good Men. Even though Nicholson was way over the top, that's exactly what he was talking about. That's where this goes. All right, it's 833-482-5337. That will get you to me. And again, this is a big, big deal. Dom Giordano on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano, happy to be sitting in as we chug toward Thanksgiving from Philadelphia. Talk Radio 1210. Follow me on Twitter at Dom Show 1210, at Dom Show 1210. All right, some reason or another in my mind, and I love this topic almost second to none. I go through it with my own sons, with my producers. Cash! What the heck is wrong with cash? We're going to be talking later this hour with a state senator in Ohio who has a law that looks like it's going to be passed that, as I understand it, businesses, and I think they particularly were talking about Walmart and some of the bigger things, have to have at least one way, one portal, one thing that you can go to where you can pay in cash. Is that too much to ask? I thought almost all those stores you'd be able to pay in cash. What's the problem? They don't want cash. Get out of here. It's legal tender. You have to do it. I wanted to link that to something because that's technology based, or at least it's not hard, cold cash. Tonight, the president issued an executive order. I think it was Scott Bessent that called it the Manhattan Project. Now, the Manhattan Project, I've read a lot about it, is one of my favorite things. We were going to get that nuclear weapon, FDR, one of his greatest achievements, and it was a game changer in World War II. Otherwise, people that were grandfathers, might be alive today, I know they're growing, each year it goes down, wouldn't be with us. They would have invaded the home islands of Japan. A lot more Japanese would have been killed. They would have been killed. 600,000 was the guesstimate, Japanese in the millions. And instead, due to the Manhattan Project, we were able to get out of that and get unconditional surrender. Well, the president tonight, the Manhattan Project, 40,000 engineers somehow or another involved in this, with something that to me, I really have mixed feelings about, and it's big, and that is the Manhattan Project on AI. The problem I have with AI is just the overkill of this. Part of me gets it. Is it a game changer? If the Chinese have the advantage over us, then what happens? But the reliance on AI, and I'm not sure that the computers are going to kill us or come together to do it. They get consciousness in all those films. But I'm asking, we've seen already, have we not, people relying on AI, how stilted it is, how out of touch it is, how annoying it is that people are just engaging and turning stuff over to AI. Now, I get it, some of the usages of it, how quickly it can churn up stuff. If you're looking for stuff to make a point about something, researching, maybe. I just don't trust it. So the executive order tonight, though, is we don't want to fall behind. Remember the missile crisis with Kennedy. We don't want to have a crisis here where they're ahead of us when it comes to AI. But I link it to all forms of things in which we're going to depend upon things like AI, be it the driverless car, be it the downgrading of cash that we'll talk about in a moment with the state senator from Ohio. They're all linked in my mind toward a future that I'm not sure the consequence of it, what the upside is. And the idea, I'm resistant to it. I was rooting against the computer when the computer played one of those people on Jeopardy. I don't know if you had a rooting. I was screaming at it. The computer, blow up. You're wrong. No sensitivity. I think the computer did win, ultimately. But AI as a Manhattan Project, we have to go there. We have to go down this path. And again, the upside in the medical field. Is AI really going to substitute for the judgment of trained physicians, etc.? Will it be directing operations? They can't possibly. I'm not relying on AI to be operating on me. How about you? But that's what the president declared tonight, right before the show. And 40,000 engineers will be part of this in some shape or form, sending a message to the Chinese about this. 833-482-5337. The cash thing in Ohio is just one bill, one state, but across the country, your experience with this, I mean, growing numbers of people under 40, certainly under 30, just don't carry cash, don't use cash. How is that more convenient? What are some of the upsides of cash? You know what they are. It's in your pocket. You can use it for a million things. Get out of a jam. Just have the comfort and security that no matter what happens, you have something to fall back on that's legal tender versus anything that might happen where your debit card or credit card or whatever is just not in play at that point. But the AI thing, I'd love to hear from people that it is in your life and in what regard. The Manhattan Project on this. And I just wanted to ask this too. What should we be declaring a Manhattan Project on? Meaning something that we are going to, come hell or high water, do as we did with the development of the atomic bombs, atomic weapons, which truly was bringing the best and the brightest, and Oppenheimer putting that together, and the result was unbelievable. Is it a cure for cancer? We've heard that before. Are we not doing enough? Is there not a czar, somebody attached to that? I could see that. Is it some other development that would help human beings? Or is AI the way to do all this? I mean, I only have limited experience with AI. If you have a lot, we'd love to hear from you. If you're a defender, if you're thrilled. I mean, I'm still worried. You have maniacs out there, several stories today, that have to be reined in. They're developing something to blot the sun out a bit to stop climate issues. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Let's fool around with the sun. Okay, so that's just developing tonight. And the idea is that everybody knows what the Manhattan Project was. And when you have that energy behind anything like that and skillful leadership like Oppenheimer and the resources and the money, then you have a good shot at making it happen because they had the raw sense of it. The Nazis and others had taken a look at nuclear weapons of one sort or another. They were fairly far away, maybe farther away than we thought, but we tapped into it, and with that sort of connection, even though New Mexico was the centerpiece of where they actually were developing it, it certainly in the end proved to be a lifesaver, big time lifesaver. So AI, Manhattan Project tonight, coming up, this law in Ohio is getting a lot of press. That's how I saw it, where all business, I'll let the senator play it out and why. In Pennsylvania, I had a guy on the other day who, if you go to some kind of school play, basketball game, football game, whatever, remember these are public schools, they have to accept cash is one of the things. How can you be a public school and say, nope, we're not taking legal tender, it's too messy for us, you must use plastic of some sort or another, or you can't pay to get in? How is it that cash is not king? Based on what? All right, 833-482-5337. Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting on America at Night. I talk about this a lot in my show in Philadelphia. I can hardly wait to find out what they're doing in Ohio. Joining us is Ohio State Representative David Thomas, District 65, Cleveland, Youngstown, Ohio. Representative, welcome. Happy Thanksgiving. So how are you guys making out here? Is there a war against cash in Ohio?
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. So this is a bill that just had been introduced recently. It's already had its first hearing in our General Government Committee. Something actually I was suggested to introduce by doing a radio interview here in Youngstown on Youngstown Radio. Folks were calling in kind of similar to what you were just talking about. You know, they're trying to go to a high school football game. They're getting denied because they didn't have their credit card, they only had cash. They maybe checking out at the doctor's office, didn't have their credit card, only had cash, but they couldn't actually make the payment. Just small kind of examples where, everyone should be kind of in agreement that cash is our basic currency. It's what we use to do all those transactions. These folks were getting denied doing actual business because they only had cash, which to me was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the big companies. So what do you say to those? Come on now, you got to have something else. This is very hard to deal with cash. I'll ask it this way. What are some of the arguments that you get against this? What are they arguing?
Yeah. So folks can actually watch the committee. It was about half an hour or so with members asking questions on the bill. Some of the arguments against it were essentially, this is big government telling businesses what to do, how to operate their business. Other questions were there were some folks that were representing minority communities in really bad neighborhoods. They shared that, hey, for safety reasons, our businesses don't carry cash. They're purely digital. Other folks kind of asked questions about, just the cost. It takes extra time, manpower, cost to have cash as opposed to digital, currency, credit cards, that type of thing. For each one of those, my response was pretty much the same, that yes, that might be true in some circumstances, but at the end of the day, cash should still be one option that our consumers, our taxpayers, are able to use. And we, go ahead.
Yeah, you seem like a pretty even-keeled guy. I'd be ready to jump over the table saying, cash is our currency. What? In God we trust. In God we trust. Yeah.
Oh, if you want to come in and give sponsor or pro bono testimony, we'd love to.
Oh, I would. I go through this with my sons and with my producers, and I'm appalled that they just refuse to carry any cash around with them. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, and there are folks. I was also asked in committee, hey, are you doing this for the seniors out there? And I said, well, I think our older folks do typically carry more cash than younger, but at the same time, I think we all know Dave Ramsey. I think we all know some of the great financial kind of recommendations that are being really pushed to try to get us out of debt on a personal level. And having that cash aspect as opposed to always relying on credit cards is actually something my generation, I'm 32, something my generation I think is starting to grow actually more and more. It's better for you financially to keep you more in check.
Exactly. When you're doing this, it's almost like guys going to a strip club or something. Yeah, put it on a charge. Who cares? You have to take out cash for even something in front of you that you think is overpriced, given a grocery store or whatever. You're going to think long and hard with it and maybe go with an alternative.
Right. And the bill is it's actually modeled after Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania. He has a U.S. Senate bill that's very simple and kind of modeled after that, but also added government organizations to this list of required entities that must take cash as well. And we tried to kind of find a middle ground where we say, let's say at your local Walmart, for example, the bill doesn't require that every cash register accept cash.
I think that's a good tactic. Yeah.
Yeah. It might be excessive. I can completely see the argument that every single one of those automatic tellers at Walmart or even the normal cash registers taking cash, I could see the argument against that. But you just have to have one. Just one per business. That way, in case there is the individual that doesn't have their credit cards with them or their debit cards and only have the cash, they at least have the opportunity then to transact business based on our fundamental currency.
Does anybody make the argument, too, the more electronic transfers you do, the more losing the card, identity theft, with cash, you don't have any of those problems?
Oh, yeah. We had one committee member, he is a former sheriff, actually, who's now a state representative. He kind of asked that in terms of just, hey, I'm concerned about security breaches. I'm concerned about hacking and my identity. Can you explain how cash then helps protect some of my identity? And that was my example, too. I remember growing up, we were kind of told, have your credit card for emergency expenses only, but use cash for all of your normal everyday expenses. Right. And that kind of helps to lower that potential of someone actually stealing your identity.
Representative, sure you're only 32 because you couldn't have that much common sense. Your generation, I have producers your age, and it's almost pathological about not wanting to carry cash. They just think it's something from outer space, and I don't understand that concept. I mean, not having credit card or debit card, too. I get it. You need both. But did any of that come up pathologically? Who's teaching them that cash is not something you should ever have on you?
Well, I think that's a big piece of definitely my generation. Definitely more of the online, transactions. Amazon, for example, ordering things online. But one of the beauties I think of the bill and just of this conversation is we're not telling you to only carry cash.
Right. Exactly.
We're not telling you can only use this in-person type of payment. We're just saying don't leave let's even say 30% of Ohioans that want to use cash for most of their transactions, don't leave them out in the cold when you're having your business and you're trying to serve everyone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on tonight. Happy Thanksgiving. Where do we find you, Representative? On Twitter or someplace else? Where do we go?
Oh, thank you. On Facebook, it's David Thomas for Ohio. On Twitter, it's David Thomas OH. Try to have a really active social media presence. TikTok, same thing. And Instagram as well, David Thomas OH.
Good luck with this, and please keep us in the loop with the producers. Thank you. Thanks for coming on America at Night.
Thank you. Have a blessed Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too. There is Dave Thomas, who is a state representative in Ohio. I happen to see this, and to me, it is just such a simple thing that we need to pass laws to say that you can use cash. How much cash do you think you should have on you at any time? I'd say $50. All right. Is that on the high side, or am I split it right? 100 is fine. And after that, I don't know. How much you'd be carrying around that. That might be a little bit risky. You could lose it, whatever. All right. Here's how to get in. 833-482-5337. Imagine having to pass laws opening up the idea that you should be able to use cash for most transactions. I mentioned the doctor's office. Why can't I pay you in cash? Too much record keeping. We don't want to keep cash here. Well, then don't be in business. That's on you. It's legal tender. It just defies. Well, is that, you heard what he said, some of them saying, well, you're an enemy of business. Not an enemy of business. This is not something exotic. It is legal tender that we're talking about here. That's why you ought to be able to do it. All right, 833-482-5337. That gets you to me. That's the way you get in here in America at Night. I want to hear from somebody who says, no, come on, you guys, stop it already. Just get a credit card. You don't need to be carrying cash around. All right, you're listening to Dom Giordano, sitting in on America at Night on Westwood One.
After the guest leaves every night, and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio, and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Dom Giordano, that's absolutely right. And America is saying, we want cash. Or at least we want it as an option, I get it. There are advantages. Talking to a great producer during the break about, you have credit card, you have something of that nature, and it gives you points. It gives you some incentive to use that. Fair. But in other instances, cash is just so more reliable, easier, emergency situation, comfort. Now, where I grew up, South Philly, Italian, Dom Giordano, you had these guys be carrying a roll, and they would put a couple 20s in the front of it, then it's all ones, and they take it out. It looks like a big roll of 20s or something. We're not saying you have to do that. But what happened to have this resistance toward cash that you just think, that's not easy? Bang! You take the cash out, you pay. That's it. Why? Are we that afraid of being robbed that you can't carry $20 on you? And you heard the representative there. They compromised. They're not trying to squash business. We don't want your cash. All right, let's go to Jason, Mystic, Connecticut, WDRC. Hi, Jason.
Hi, how are you?
Good, Jason.
Hey, you brought up the subject of cash not being accepted, which I'm 50 years old, and in the past 2 months, I went to Killington Lodge, had some drinks, had some food with my father, and went to pay. They would not accept cash. So we got everything for free. Today, I went to a car wash, and I went to pay with cash, and they wouldn't accept it. And I'm talking to my dad. I'm like, what the, how, why, and what's wrong with cash now? So that's, you started your conversation off when I tuned in with the cash thing, and I don't understand.
I don't understand the proliferation. They come up with, people can steal it. They come up with it's too cumbersome. And the government, when he mentioned that, I didn't get into it with the rep, Jason. There are some that want this digital system, total digital system that can be monitored rather than any cash at all. I can't explain how cash got a bad name. Again, first order business. It's legal tender. Second of all, how is it less convenient for the consumer to use cash than a card? I have no way. It's easier to use cash.
It has nothing to do with convenience for the consumer. I think it has something to do with convenience for the tracker.
Yes. And also, he mentioned a good point. We are much less going to overspend when you're taking out that hard-earned cash and paying than when you put it on your credit card. And then when people realize they're in debt, I don't know what they're missing here. That's what happens if you're charging everything.
That is correct. Because if you take $10,000 out of the bank or $1,000 or $100 and you look at it, it's a bit different than swiping a card or writing a check. You can see it's there. You
think of how many hours you've had to work to get that. Yeah,
exactly. And you can put it down. So when you brought the topic up, you spun off on a bunch of other things, which obviously pertain to it. But I have the same question. I'm like, why? Because, like I said, I'm 50 years old. In the past 2 months, 2 places said no cash.
Right.
And they obliged to go ahead and, one place, like, okay, your dinner and drinks are free. Which, me and my father, we're gentlemen, so we tipped nearly what the bill would have been. But the perplexity after is like, what in the hell just happened?
Yeah, exactly right. Thank you, Jason. Thanks very much. And yet you have on the same token where, particularly my wife and I were Jersey Shore, Wildwood, places like that, where they're charging you if you don't pay in cash. There's some of that going on, a service fee, because they have to deal with that with the credit card companies. So it's kind of like, which one is it that we're dealing with here? But Jason's on to something, too. It's not just suddenly you're told, no, we don't accept cash. Get that cash out of here. It's also, again, my sons, producers, why would you almost be allergic to carrying cash? Is it you really have in your head, if you're robbed, you're going to lose X amount? I mean, isn't the security of having something there in cash just in the worst case scenario of something, you forget, you have to deal with this, you got to buy this? Who is it that is indoctrinating generations to think, no, I never want to have that with me. All I need is some card. Plastic is it. That's it. Everything's convenient. Everything's taken care of. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, that we actually have to pass laws to deal with that. That was his point in Ohio. I think you're seeing this play out in many states where there's a battle going on here. And big business doesn't want people, apparently, using cash. When he mentions a doctor's office, the copay or something. What? Why do I want to do that? I don't want to pay you in that. I want to have a choice and just pay you in cash. Yeah, well, we don't like that. We have to keep track of that. We have to keep cash here. There's something weird about that. Mark, College Station, Texas, WTAW. Hey, Mark, welcome in.
Appreciate it. This is one that if you go back in the 70s, and it was Cali was the lieutenant's name, and it was referred to as the My Lai Massacre.
Right.
The Supreme Court went all the way to Supreme Court. He went to Leavenworth.
Yes,
now,
10 years or so at least.
Here,
yes.
Right. All orders aren't the same.
Right.
That one he could question. He was on the ground. He could question, so there was no excuse for what happened. All right.
Well, and in fact, Mark, the Cali thing is a really good one. There are some indications that even going into that village, they knew what he was going to command, or it wasn't just on the spur of the moment what they were supposed to do. Clearly an illegal order.
Yeah, right, exactly. But Marines on the ground and the Army, that's one thing. Navy on the ground, they're on a base, or Air Force on the ground, they're at a base. Now, Navy at sea or the Marines on a ship, that's a different story because that is mutiny and you're putting the ship at risk. An aircraft flying on a mission, let's say it's got nuclear weapons or whatever it's doing, and it's not where it can close land, where it's in close proximity so it can land, so they can question it. All right? That's mutiny. Well, whatever they call that in the Air Force, that is something that you can't do. So those orders, it's different. It depends upon the circumstances of what it is, whether you have to carry it out. You're given an order in the Navy and you're at sea, you do it. Because if you don't, you're committing mutiny. You're putting the ship and the rest of the crew at risk.
And, Mark, what you're cutting to, I agree with that completely, is these people about don't give up the ship. Well, they are giving up the ship here when they talk about that. You can't be doing this in the manner that you're talking about. It's incredibly risky that everybody could be at risk and die. Thank you, Mark, very much. Yeah, we're going to have a lot more on this, maybe even tomorrow night, but we had a great guest on tonight, a retired brigadier general, laying out where he thinks this is coming from, and the CIA connection to it seems to be part of it. All right, I'm coming to a lot more calls. 833-482-5337. Are we going overboard on the cash thing here? What is it that is propelling all these forces? I get business. We get their motivation. But what's the motivation of the consumer to reject culturally? The younger you get, rejecting money, carrying money, like it's a foreign thing. Like, why would you do that? What's your fascination with carrying money? Again, I don't know how many more arguments I could make. The safety and convenience of it, the backup of it, the fact that you see what you're actually paying. You know, you start out with $100 in your wallet, you're paying $50. You see this and you're thinking, maybe I'm going to go lesser here. If you're using a card, the temptation is to say, what the heck? You're not experiencing that. You're not seeing it in any real way. It's a pretty obvious thing. How do we get there where they have to make laws to force particularly public schools to tell them, no, you're going to have to let people pay cash? Well, we don't want to. You're a public school. This is the currency of the country. You can't not say that. Got to stop them. All right, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
It's Dom with the name. Dom Giordano, pinch hitting from Philadelphia, Talk Radio 1210. I'm not going to say the name or whatever. It's no big deal. But somebody behind the scenes, not our producer, but somebody in the vast enterprise of America at Night, put up on my Twitter at DomShow1210. I've been robbed 4 times, beaten up 2 of them, a reason not to carry cash. Okay. Do you think they would have not robbed you? I mean, are we talking about excessive amounts here? So is that the reason? Well, this way, if you're robbed, I could make an argument if you're carrying somewhat of a minimal amount of money, that might be something that calms down potential robbers versus if you have nothing. Or in extreme cases, are they going to take you somewhere and make you use your credit card or something of that nature? Is that the reason you wouldn't carry cash? Then if robbed, you don't have to worry about losing anything. All right? I think it's a little bit risky that way. I'm not talking about extreme amounts of cash. Let's go to Eduardo in Tampa, Florida, streaming on WLS. Hey, Eduardo, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good evening. I got to go back to your first topic. There's the Admiral Alvin Halsey, Holsey.
Yes.
He moved on. He's the commander of Caribbean forces.
Yes.
He moved on because he disagreed because of these boat fires.
Right.
That's interesting that this is happening after his dismissal.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to get the President Trump to, back him into a corner saying, well, these boat fires are illegal in their opinion. Even Rand Paul, he's kind of like the leading, I guess he's on the Homeland detail.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I saw him with Brennan, the Face the Nation, over the weekend, complaining about that. 'Cause they're not justifying the cases for this. But they forget about Tren de Agua. They forgot about the Soz gang from Venezuela too, that Maduro's in charge of. A lot of drugs are going in, and this Petro guy from Colombia, he's good friends with Maduro.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
a lot of cocaine is moving into Mexico.
Right. And Eduardo, there is another tool. You can impeach a president if the president exceeds his authority. They can do that if they take over. We know all that, and the Supreme Court is apparently going to rule on this. I wish the Supreme Court would rule sooner rather than later. But it appears to be even broader than that. That's what I thought it was in the beginning. This, I think, is coming out of more of a CIA part. I think the Slotkin woman is the quarterback of this. And sadly, I think Mark Kelly got caught up in it. He hadn't done things like that politically before. Why all of a sudden would he be this reckless?
Yeah, he didn't strike me as the type.
Right, exactly.
He seems more of a middle-of-the-road type of guy. Yeah,
exactly.
He doesn't seem that's the type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you raised a good point. That is one of the trigger elements here. Why don't they just spit that out, though, and say, yes, this is it? It just shows you how convoluted this is. They wouldn't say anything specific. Now they're kind of vaguely saying things. But I think you're right. This is one of the trigger areas. Thanks, Eduardo, very much. Thank you for the call. Mark Kelly just didn't strike me, in fairness, that way. And he's the one that's going to pay the ones that are going to pay the ultimate penalty are people down lower in rank who either are disgruntled, don't like Trump, think they're patriotic, and they're going to start arguing about orders. And I made this point the other night. This puts commanders or somebody in charge, lieutenant, captain, whatever it is, to have to figure out what they're going to do. They better be careful, too, because if they crack down too hard on this, then they're going to be in the spotlight. These people are reckless in this. Slotkin is the architect. She's the quarterback. No doubt in my mind. And Mark Kelly is banking, I guess, on thinking he's shielded by his service to the country, which was great. So then why do this? And we found out Gallego, the other senator from Arizona, said, yeah, I didn't get the script in time. So we know there was a script. We know there was planning. Who is it that wrote the script. In other words, these people didn't just contribute to this. There was a script sent from a central person to coordinate this because they had to match their schedules, and they couldn't do that with Gallego, who now attacking Hegseth and saying he's not a man. My God. All right, final calls of the hour coming up, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
America at Night, Dom Giordano pinch hitting, and this just unsolvable riddle. What the heck is so wrong with cash? You heard the guy in Ohio having to pass these laws on all the nooks and crannies of this to demand that businesses accept cash. Is that something that is curtailing business? No, it's not. That's called legal tender. I mean, you either have a country where cash is accepted or you don't. Stop coming up with subterfuges because you don't want to follow our traditions and our laws. This is legal tender. Let's go to Jesse in Washington, D.C., WMAL. Hey, Jesse.
For taking my call. You know, I'm a contractor here in the area. Do a couple $1 million in business a year, which is great. Very happy about that. All legal employees. Very proud of that. And, you know, I say 40% of my customers pay in cash. And you know why they do it? They don't want to pay the 3.3% processing fee.
Yes, exactly.
For credit cards, debit cards, all that stuff. They don't want to pay that. I tell them I'm very transparent, and people are like, you know, I'd rather pay you cash. They go to the bank, they get the cash, they come out, they pay me $6,000, $4,000, whatever the job costs, and they prefer it. I like it. Better cash flow for the business. The customers like it. They're not paying middlemen to process a payment. You know, overall, it's a better deal for the consumer. It's better for business. I'm with you. I don't understand this whole thing. Like, we don't like cash. I show it to businesses. I offer cash all the time. I go to restaurants and say, look, you don't take cash, really? Every time an owner showed up and said, hold on, you got cash? I will gladly take it.
That's right. I mean, God.
Is king, right? You know,
well, Jesse, you know, I grew up in South Philly, as you heard me saying, and you tell these guys there you're not taking cash. It's beyond ludicrous. So good for you. I'm glad your business is thriving, and thanks for the call. Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, how did it get to this point where it's just rejected? Look, I know how dirty money is, but that's okay. Send it to me. Just kidding. And we'll deal with the dirt. We can sanitize that. Great stuff from the representative in Ohio, and I think he's going to succeed. I think you're going to see more of that in various places, particularly if it's a public entity. Well, in general, cash is king, one. It's legal tender, in God we trust. And why don't you want us to pay in cash? And you're right. In some instances, you get charged a processing fee. A lot of restaurants, they put it in the small print below. Ludicrous. Another problem solved. Now on to bigger things that demand our attention. That's our mission tonight. All right, it's Dom Giordano on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano rounding out the night, sitting in here on America at Night. Follow me on Twitter at Dom Show, at DOM, at Dom Show 1210. Love to have you along. Great calls in this whole cash issue and trying to figure out how cash got shoved aside here, particularly carrying it on your own. But I'm trying to figure out tonight, too. You can try to help me. And most people have been in agreement with me over a week now of this. I'm looking at, as we speak, Mark Kelly, Senator Kelly, was on the big show tonight with Rachel Maddow. And he said that I said something that was pretty simple and non-controversial. Members of the military should follow the law. Okay, here's the thing with this guy, all right? Why out of the blue? I mean, stop already with the pot. Let's get it on, buddy. Let's talk about this. Come on, let's have some action here. Spit it out, what you're saying. It's about Trump, and any order that he gives might be illegal. That's what it is. So he tries with Maddow, and of course she goes along with it, one-on-one with Senator Mark Kelly. This is simple, non-controversial. So is Trump saying you shouldn't follow the law? Is Trump saying there are not illegal orders? The first question these people have to answer is, and it gets to everything. You know it and I know it. Why now? Why suddenly? Because Gallego, the senator from Arizona who jumped into the ring and apparently wants to take on Pete Hegseth, mano, is saying, he said tonight he let it slip. Well, I saw the script, but I didn't have time in the day at that point to tape it with them. In other words, this guy is doing stolen valor. He's saying, yes, I wanted to be with the seditious six, but I just didn't get there in time. But I'm with them. See, he suffers none of the consequences potentially, but he's with them. The script. But can you imagine still doing this nonsense? Let's get it on, Mark Kelly. Spit it out. What is it you're saying exactly? Why suddenly would we need sort of like a training tape? That's what they keep on trying to go to. Out of the blue. 6 of them just say, you know what? These people in the military, they got to know you can resist and you have to defend the Constitution. Why? Because of Trump. And when they get drawn out on this, they come up with the lamest answers about what Trump has said that's an illegal order. So if you don't have any illegal order, why are you doing this now? Then they say for future reference with Trump. This is reckless. I don't believe Mark Kelly was the architect, though. I think it's Slotkin, CIA, arrogance, up and down the line. It's Slotkin. He's the one, though, that's going to have to go through, I believe, a court-martial proceeding. Let's get it on. That's what we ought to do. Now, what I'm hoping comes out of this is every one of them gets some degree of penalty. He loses his commission, loses his pension. I don't know about all the other stuff with sedition, etc. But the more these people talk, the more they obfuscate, the more they get away with it with the media, the harder this is. All right, that's one thing. Want to throw this out there and see where we go and see what you think. Sadly, today, the last survivor of the racist attack on Tulsa passed away at the age of 111. Last person who witnessed that. Now, I don't know about you. When I've been on, you've heard me. I'm a former teacher before I got into this. And I'm adamant that kids ought to be not indoctrinated in school, this idea with DEI, critical race theory, all that nonsense. But I do think they ought to learn of certain touch points that are not the best of our history, even though the best of the country shows its evolution from those times. Tulsa apparently was called the Black Wall Street, thriving area in downtown Tulsa, when it was attacked by white mobs, including, I think I read somewhere there may have even been an airplane or something involved. And the last survivor passed away today. Any reasonable person would say, sure, kids ought to be taught that in school, but they ought to see the line of America evolving over the course of time, the blood that was spilt, Civil War, the reforms that were passed over the course of time, and America being tweaked to come to where we are today. You can do both in teaching kids, particularly at the high school level. But the Tulsa thing is one I did not come across until I started doing talk radio. That's another thing, too. It interests me. I didn't know about jury nullification, even though I went to law school. Hadn't heard that, even though I won moot court competition at Rutgers Law, prior to actually being fully in talk radio. Then I learned about jury nullification and how that works. There's a million things that come up in talk radio that the average person never's heard of. Not just the politics of it. Just stuff that, wow, I didn't know that. If you have one of those, I'd love to get you in. But Mark Kelly, I think, is a dupe here. I think he's gotten himself into trouble. He's stained his reputation. Never struck me that he would be the driving force here around this whole thing. But that is Slotkin is the principal player in all this. All right, you can get in on all that, and you do that at 833-482-5337. The outcome of this still to be determined. Oh, by the way, one article to commend to you. If you missed it on Sunday, we had on, I guess it was last week. Yeah, we had him on Friday because Mondami was meeting with Trump. Ted Jenkin, who is an entrepreneur in Atlanta, he wrote a piece about socialism versus capitalism that was very well-placed, not in the weeds. And he wrote another one for Fox on Sunday afternoon that dropped about how Christmas, or we're into this phase where certain holidays are just subsuming other holidays. And probably the biggest, he talked about, Thanksgiving is the best holiday of the year that we're about ready to celebrate in a lot of ways. And yet it's dwarfed by Christmas because there's more money to be spent. How much you're going to spend with Thanksgiving, really? And he talked about this insidious, how it spreads, that Christmas inching, essentially rubbing out. Now, Thanksgiving is really late this year, so maybe there's that. But anytime you see the name Ted Jenkin, read his stuff. Just great stuff. All right, let's go to the callers here. Let's go to Paul in Globe, Arizona, KRVN. Hey, Paul, thanks for the wait. Go right ahead.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned the racist thing because, I'm sure you've heard about manifest destiny in your studies.
Sure.
And how we said basically to the Aborigines, the American Indian, that either you get out of the way or we will eliminate you or put you on reservations. We are going to take this land. Now, I'd like you to apply that in a modern version, repackaged to why this Ukrainian war goes on and on. England, France, and Germany in particular are very racist countries in many ways toward the Slavic people. They do not give a hoot that Ukrainians and Russians are killing each other. If it was Englishmen or Frenchmen or Germans, there would be outrage. This would have to end. But this war is very profitable. I think Zelensky, they say, has gotten away with billions in his cohort, some of which have flown to Israel, so they can't be extradited. So this is very profitable. And after all, it's only Slavic people killing each other. So all this claptrap about Ukrainian democracy, sovereignty is a bunch of nonsense. The root cause of this war is racism, and it's destroying the economy of Europe and the United States because if we keep pouring money down a rat hole in Ukraine, Trump will never be able to accomplish any of his goals in the United States.
All right, thank you, Paul. I see it a little bit differently, but okay, I got you. I don't think we're going to see, even though there's some promise, surprisingly, on the Ukrainian thing, I don't think we're going to see certainly a settlement. It's too complicated by Thanksgiving. But what's the leverage over Putin? Ultimately, that's what will determine movement in the stopping this. All right, I'd love to have you get in, though. 833-482-5337. I mentioned the Tulsa situation. Also, again, this most recent interview with Mark Kelly. Here we go again. Avoiding the issue. Trying to say, Rachel, why is Trump so exercised? Everybody knows you don't have to follow an illegal order. Yeah, why now? They're training tapes. We already know that people in the military are trained up and down on this. Of course, Rachel Maddow knows that too. doesn't want to ask it. Why are you doing it now? And I mentioned the script that came out with this Gallego guy. I couldn't get there to film it, but I had the script. It is a script. And it's a playbook. And the playbook is to say Trump is responsible for illegality. So anything he orders should be questioned, probably an illegal order. Start trouble over it. What's going to happen? You'll see, maybe a dozen or more people will get kicked out of the military or worse because they'll be following the directives. I don't know if they think Mark Kelly's a hero or not, if they know of him, astronaut, etc. They might, and think, wow, I have a patriotic duty to follow through. The commander in the Caribbean, I think, didn't think attacking these Venezuelan drug boats was what we should do, so he essentially resigned, didn't make a big deal out of it. If he wants to say something, he now can. Mark Kelly is going to face a court-martial. That's what's going to come out of it, and that is what is justified. And he keeps on because the media is allowing this to make it as just out of the blue. This happened. Again, if I were interviewing him, if we got him on, or Gallego, we're going to start with that, and I'm not moving off that point. I might ask 3, 4, or 5 questions. I'm not moving off on this. How did it happen? How did you get the script? Who sent the script? Who wrote the script? Why do you want to know all that stuff? For exactly the reason you want to cover it up. That's why I want to know it. All right, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
It is America at Night all across the country. Dom Giordano pinch hitting tonight. Follow on Twitter at DomShow1210. And it's all consuming as this plays out. Tonight's interview with, of course, Rachel Maddow. I think she's still only on the one night with Mark Kelly. He's now put up on Twitter, I defy them. I'll face this court-martial. Are they going to have me sitting there with the Combat V and also with as an astronaut for space flights, etc.? Are they really going to face me down? We'll see, buddy. You've been played here, I think, by Slotkin. And just because we acknowledge, certainly, tremendous service to the country, you still refuse to answer the initial question. Why now? Why do this now? Who did it? Who did the script? I'm not moving off that point. I'm not getting to anything else. We're going to get that on the record. They evade that because they know how damning this is. Larry's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Hi, Larry. Larry, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm right here.
All right, Larry, go right ahead. Hi.
Yeah, you got these death panels, these people that are running these insurance companies, like say an organ transplant, they said, oh, this person's this age, they don't have enough insurance and all that. They make a decision who gets that organ transplant, They'll just leave it up to AI to do it.
I see, back to the AI. So you like that as an arbiter?
Well, they'll just say, hey, the machine don't have a conscience like a human. Just AI decided that's what it is.
Aha! You know what, Larry? You've opened something up. That's exactly right. The machine does not. So I think the machine's going to rule against most people. Why does Dom? He's a big mouth and all. We can get another big mouth. Don't give him the organ transplant.
Hey, Matt, and you're talking about this Manhattan agriculture. We're shipping in meat from Argentina, Mexico. We got the land. We got the technology right here. These people have rehab from drug or they're in prison. Start up these big farms. Let these prisoners and learn the agricultural business.
All right. Well, Larry, thank you. Thanks for a great call. I think you went a bridge too far. I don't know that I want to be eating the food prepared by these prisoners that we're throwing out there on the farms. I think I'll pass. Is that from the prisoner? Are they the ones that created? Yeah, I might pass on that. But he's right on the other point. Yeah, well, we let AI decide. AI is completely objective. No transplant for you. As a way to get out of here. How far are we going to go with reliance on AI? And by the way, I just lumped them all together, and we were talking about cash and AI in the last hour. The driverless car is my biggest enemy. I don't want to be driven around by anybody. The only time I submitted to that, I did a thing for the show. We were in Charlotte. I was driven by a AAA driver around the speedway there. And even then, I was thinking, shove over, let me drive here. You know, I just don't like being driven by anybody. I would never be chauffeured or in the back seat. You know, I just reject it. So this idea that the car would be driverless, what could go wrong? This notion playing out with Mark Kelly, he's going to face down this court-martial group. You think they're not going to be resentful to say, look, we honor you for your service, but you're not facing down anything here because you're causing problems for people at the lower ranks to get in their head that it's patriotic. What they ought to be doing is just opposing Trump in this. That's what this is about. And forcing commanders then to have to deal with all this stuff. Like, I don't know how many times anybody I've interviewed, they say it's rare, if ever, that someone questions the order and says it's an illegal order because they're not telling them to massacre civilians or anything of the like. So where is this coming up? In the minds of the 6 who had a script. We learned that tonight. Gallego, the senator from Arizona, said yes, they had a script, but he couldn't join them because of time. Otherwise, he would have done it. Who wrote the script? Who paid the money to produce this? Where did it come from? We're not moving forward, Mark Kelly, till you answer those questions. If you can't, then you're just reckless and you've been played here. All right, 833-482-5337. Get you to me, Dom Giordano. You can follow on Twitter at DomShow1210. Love to get to you before the end of the show. Again, this is recklessness at best, and at worst, it's sedition. Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night on Westwood One. Thrilled to be doing this show tonight with you, Dom Giordano, and all these developments coming our way. Hey, one thing I meant to develop at Lent tonight, talked about on my own show in Philadelphia, I'll just drop in maybe tomorrow night, is AOC a contender to be the Democrat nominee in 2028? Yes, she is. I know the downside, but she brings some pop to the Democrat side that the others might not have. She's invested millions in campaign dollars. She now has 36.7 million followers on various social media. That's pretty potent. It's not everything. Now, notice I said winning, no. Being the nominee, potentially, yeah. Could she hold her own against geniuses like Gavin Newsom? Think about that. All right, so we are talking about a little bit of late developments now. They just continue. This is drowning out everything else, even as we head toward Thanksgiving. And Mark Kelly carrying the ball more than anybody now. And they're still going with this cover story. Well, we're just doing it. Why would you not want us to tell the military they don't have to follow an illegal order? We know exactly what's up here. This is a psych op. This is straight out of the book to convince them, and some of them will be willing sacrifice. They don't care, that are going to come forward, get into trouble, questioning something that clearly is not an illegal order. It may not be something you like. It may be something you differ with, but that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It rises to the level of an illegal order. All right, let's go to Larry in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Let's go to Frank in Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Hello, Frank.
Hi, Dom. You know, back in the early 50s, Canada had the first nuclear accident in the world.
Okay.
And it was an Army term called CRUD. That stood for Chalk River Unidentified Deposits. And that was upstream from Toronto. And they're still finding contamination from, it was a horrific accident. They didn't know how bad this stuff really was. And, it's just affected the politics of Toronto. It's I wonder why there's so many liberals there.
You think that would have an impact? Sure, I could see that. And yet, there are many people now on the other side, on the left, Frank, that seem to be for nuclear energy if they had to choose any kind of form versus some of the other stuff that we're dealing with. Of course, wind, but even nuclear energy. Thank you, Frank. Thanks for that. By the way, today, interesting, it's a poll of sort. Harry Enton on CNN is great in the morning, even when I differ with him. And he had the poll up today. At this point in time, we're really almost year 5, end of year 5 of Trump, even with this stuff in between. Where were President Bush Jr. and President Obama as far as support of their own party as they were nearing the end of year 5? Well, Obama had 78% support from Democrats, and Bush had 78% support from Republicans. Trump is at 87% support of Republicans as we speak tonight, at least in this one poll comparison, CNN. Now, why might that be? Well, we've grown more partisan. The attacks are more severe. They are amazing. And people like what Trump has achieved, even if they don't like some of the personalities, some of the stuff that went on. They're willing to move past that in order to continue America First, what he's proposing, what he's doing, even if they're a bit critical of it. But that's pretty telling that both Bush and Obama were at about 78% support of their own party this point in time. Trump is at 87%. And that takes a lot because you still have a wing of the Republican Party who are the George W. Bush, the Dick Cheney, the Liz Cheney, the people on ending wars and all that. That's a healthy margin of where he is. And as long as that stays, he has support. All he needs to do is reach around the edges to gain a little bit more, and he has a governing majority without a doubt. Now, does that mean we win in the midterms? No, it does not. And any number of signs are not good for Republicans on this. Like President Trump was supposed to announce a Republican health care plan today. Any number of Republicans, and I agree with them, from what I've seen, feel that this is too government-oriented, what he was going to announce, and they are rejecting that. But Republicans do have to come up with some viable health plan. Otherwise, when we go into the midterms, the other side repeatedly, you know what happens, says, okay, you're critical of Obamacare, which is a disaster as predicted, but where's yours? And round and we go, chewing up time during this and gaining an advantage. So sooner rather than later, Republicans need a solid alternative on health care. And I thought we'd be talking about it tonight, but then it was pulled around the middle of the day. In no way, shape, or form do we have anything remotely concrete, and I don't think we'll see that until sometime in December. But isn't it amazing, the story that I've thought all last week when I was sitting in here in America at Night, I don't want to overdo it on this, but each day the drama built. And then with the Sunday shows, and then with Pete Hegseth today and the Pentagon saying, yes, we are opening an investigation, a formal investigation of Mark Kelly, because he's the only one the military can do anything with, since he still has his commission. And this could lead to a court-martial trial. Kelly, of course, out there saying, bring it on. Let's see them, somebody with my background. Well, your background, and it's painful to see somebody who's been an astronaut, somebody who's done what he did as a pilot in the Navy, that you have to go against him in this matter. And it begs the question, what could be in the mind of some of these people like Kelly that have tremendous military service that they turn towards an extreme Democrat position here? Is it just Trump derangement syndrome? I mean, that's the clear answer. Is there some political advantage they think they're getting here? In the case of Slotkin, the CIA, well, this is the CIA methodology. She apparently was somebody connection to Brennan. So we know the Trump hatred there, or the CIA methodology. This is how you deal with stuff like this. So maybe that figures. But I think Kelly has been played here. And I don't think we should stop giving him deference for his military service. That's it. If you continue, you're not a dummy. If you continue to say, well, this just happened, we thought it was time. No, there was a script and all. Who thought it was time? Who is it that said it's time to let the military know they have the right to refuse an illegal order? And then we don't even have any definition of an illegal order. And the only way you can define a legal order is to calm down in detail, have some information that's verified by the military. This happened, and this is what happened. And I'm not talking about Lieutenant Cowie and all. We all get that. That's an illegal order. I'm talking about something else that is not as far out there. But you know what it tells me? Those are the only types of legal orders that are being given. Orders that are given that somebody on the scene may differ with are not illegal orders just because somebody differs with them. That's not how it works. It has to be extreme. It's rare. Imagine the military debating every situation every day. How in the world would you have a functional military? You wouldn't. But they do put an illegal order in there because that is the right thing. It's in our traditions. That could happen. We want to avoid that. This is the United States of America. We don't do things like that. Why don't we hear about more of these? Why is that? Well, I think it's telling you that by definition, these don't exist. And we're also talking about the common sense of how would you arbitrate this. I feel for the commanders or people that are like lieutenant, something like that, and up, slightly up, to have to deal to keep good military order here and not get caught up in cracking down on somebody or something. This is just going to provoke. I'm surprised it already hasn't. I think it's bubbling. You could see dozens of cases of somebody who's a malcontent relying on this in their own mind, and that's going to be a disaster for them. Why do this? Because of the script. They mentioned the script tonight. And maybe Kelly just got caught up in that. It just didn't strike me that he would get so offended by Trump. He ought to spill his guts and tell us why Trump's so offensive that it set him off on doing this. Does he have regrets? No, not at this moment. He's puffing his chest out saying, bring it on. We'll see about that. All righty, 833-482-5337. We'll get you in here on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night. Let's go straight to the callers. Let's go to Bill in Silver City, New Mexico, KNUW. Hey, Bill, welcome to the show. Go right ahead.
Well, thank you very much. I wanted to comment on your main question, why now? To me, It's obvious. We're not talking about Epstein. We're talking about this stuff. This was designed right down almost to the minute to keep us from discussing the real issues these days, which is Epstein. I see where Larry Summers got punished today. I think regarding AOC, your comment that the establishment wants to use her to get more people on their team, but they don't want her as president because she's a bit of a loose cannon. So all this is really he gets.
Yeah, but Bill, why would Democrats want to distract us from Epstein?
Well, like I said, Larry Summers, wasn't he a Democrat?
Sure, but that's not the big fish. I mean, he's kind of pathetic in this, et cetera. You know what I mean? That's not where this is going. It's getting into, can they find anything with Trump or something else they can play with? They accuse Trump of distracting from it.
Well, true, but we're obviously not coming up with anything else for timing, but I would just say that that's what it is. Everybody's discussing this, and that I think they're going to run Slotkin for president. She was the one that gave the response to the State of the Union, and I think, and I don't consider a CIA agent to be the equivalent of a U.S. military veteran.
Not at all. That is exactly right. Yeah, that is a great point. We need them, but I agree with you. There's a suspect nature to that. Thank you, Bill. No, I don't see this as a distraction from Epstein. I see this as a plot. Here's what I piece out, okay? One working theory. You had the No King stuff, right? They saw allegedly 7 million people. You know all that, right? And they were ginning up before that. The deep state could be something as simple as somebody in the agriculture department that says, we're going to slow walk this Trump agenda. We're going to do all that we can to not let him fully get out there what his policies are. We know about that too. But then they made a fatal, somebody here says, you know what, after the No Kings, it's not enough. All these levels of resistance. I played on my own show in Philadelphia today. You have idiots out there in California to get at ICE and Home Depot. They're going to Home Depot and they're buying ice scrapers, that are cheap, and then they're returning them, hundreds of them, to tie up Home Depot. Who has time to be doing this stuff? It was amazing to see how they were doing it, just to disrupt. So they're into this mode. They do know Kings. They see it as very successful. What is the next area to hit that really can cause, and they see what's going on in Venezuela, the Venezuelan drug strikes, and they think this is a target of opportunity. This is a massive miscalculation, though. And Mark Kelly has to be made an example of. I think Pam Bondi has to look at the other 5 also, since she can't get at them through the military. So I don't think they're doing this at this moment to distract from, they want Epstein to be out there. They feel on their side it's more of a win for their side because they see Trump reluctant here in some way, shape, or form, and that's what they're going with. No, they wanted to do this to open up another front. That's exactly where they're going, and some of it is to appease their base. They're fighting back. They're taking it to Trump on this. He's completely illegal. And also, they always want to cause general chaos. But I don't think it's a distraction on Epstein as much as it's a miscalculation coming off the No Kings nonsense. Open it up in the military. And again, maybe one of them, like Slotkin, is feeling that this would resonate, and they think hundreds of people in the military are going to turn on Trump. Even though military recruitment numbers are way up, they're thinking this would be the ultimate thing to out Trump. Well, we haven't seen it yet. What's going to happen? A few sacrificial lambs are going to get nailed in this. All right, final calls. Here's how you get in, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
America at Night. Dom Giordano, pinch hitting. Hit me on Twitter. Love to have you be part of it. Let's go to some more callers here to round off the night. Lewis in Bradford, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Hey, Lewis. All right, let's go to John in Reno, Nevada, streaming KDKA. Hey, John.
Hey, Dom. Good to talk to you again.
Same here.
I tell you, I'm real happy with Trump. His tariffs and his Doge are going to go down in history with Seward's Folly and the Louisiana Purchase. Over time, he's going to make us a fortune. I'm a little disappointed about his falling out with Marjorie Taylor Greene and others. I'm going to miss her. She's a wonderful personality, and I think we'll miss her. But he's really a tremendous president. The money he's saving us, if you extrapolate it over 50, 60, 100 years, is tremendous what his tariffs are going to do for us.
All right, well, tomorrow night, I'm not a tariff guy. Maybe I'm resisting it just back to my high school education. So tomorrow night, we'll give you a chance to expound on that. I don't see it. There's a fatal flaw in it. I give him some grace. Wheeling and dealing with it, he's been a little bit different than the usual tariffs. He's used it politically very effective with certain countries. So, John, you don't think there's any problem that's helping you raise certain prices?
No, it's bringing in investment from other countries. And the major technological giants, China, Korea, India, these countries have been abusing us for 60, 70 years as we've lost all our jobs. We can compete with these people. We can compete, and we will compete with them now. Over the next 100 years, the savings are going to be incredible.
All right, thank you, John. I promise tomorrow night, but we'll get into it more when it's not limited, a little bit more on the whole tariffing thing. And, just always have had that position. Look, I give a certain leeway here. He's playing with it in various ways that were effective. But as an overall strategy, I don't see it. Hey, it's always an honor, and I'll be with you tomorrow night, particularly as we head toward Thanksgiving, to be sitting in here on America at Night with this vast audience all across the country. And I want to acknowledge great producers, Rich Good, who keeps things flowing, and the executive producer, Alex Hinton, both behind the scenes. You hear us talk about them, but that's what makes talk radio go. Just remember from tonight, cash is king. That's a big thing with all the calls we had, and we have some malcontents out there telling me it's not. That's okay. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210. You're listening to America at Night on Westwood One.